hearing room, and I am expecting my colleagues to be here any minute, and there is one. Jose Bizar has just joined us, the Honorable Councilman Jose Bizar, District 14. And we do expect Councilman Wise to be here at any moment. It should be a relatively short meeting, but I think I just jinxed it. But let's see how it goes. My understanding is that our Director Gail Goldberg will not be with us this afternoon. Is that right, Vince?
That's correct. She sends her regrets, but she is at an all-day retreat with the City Planning Commission.
Okay. Now, we can go through the agenda real quick, and we do have items that we can go through. And Roberto, let's start with item number 1.
Yes, Councilman. Item 1 is a motion, Garcetti Reyes. It's directing DOT and the Planning Department to develop a community parking project in the Atwater Village pedestrian-oriented district in CD13.
Okay, do we have anyone from the staff who would like to speak to this item? Seeing none, this looks like a very creative approach to a hard issue, and let's ask for a status update in 60 days.
Actually, Councilman, you may want to concur with T Committee
Okay.
and approve the motion.
Well, that's what we'll do, Roberto. We'll concur with the Transportation Committee and we'll approve the motion. Are we okay, Emily? Okay, item 2. Okay, item number 2, Roberto?
Item 2, Councilman, is a motion Reyes Gruel. It's instructing Planning Department and DOT to prepare a report that delineates the city's plan to implement AB 1358 Leno, the Complete Streets Act of 2007.
Okay. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chairman Reyes and Council Member Huizar. Emily Gabeletti for the Planning Department. And with me is Helen Bibas, who works in the Citywide Division. She and Jordan Turner are currently preparing the bicycle element. I wanted to take this opportunity to give you some very good news.
Great.
In light of the Complete Streets Act of 2007. I'd like to make 5 points on what we are already doing in the Planning Department and let other people be more aware of the things that are going on. First, 10 years ago, the Council did adopt policies on reasonable accommodation through the adoption of the General Plan Framework and the adoption of the mobility element. The mobility element and the framework identified different kinds of functions for streets, including a pedestrian priority street or a transportation priority street. So we've been on the books, our city has, for at least a decade moving forward with just this idea. Secondly, we look at this as a balance between user needs, that is reasonable accommodation, and environmental needs, and that is redesigning the public right-of-way in a way that can accept things like stormwater infiltration, afford opportunities for additional greening, reducing the heat island effect. And towards that end, the Council recently adopted some further direction to our department and the Public Works and Transportation departments to continue to work on developing details for green streets and green alleys. The third point I'd like to make is that policy is great, but it doesn't work unless it's implemented. And in a few weeks, we will be bringing, the Planning Department will be bringing to you the Downtown Street Standards, which is a step in actually implementing reasonable accommodation through the development of engineered cross-sections that will change the way the streets work in downtown Los Angeles. And not only has it been worked out with the Bureau of Engineering and our Department of Transportation with the Redevelopment Agency, it will be made available on Navigate LA so that all stakeholders and developers will be able to see what the new street standards are. The next point I'd like to make is that through our new community plan process and the Hollywood Community Plan, the staff that are working on these will bring forward more implementation recommendations to accommodate pedestrians, bicycles, and transit on streets in those plan areas. I don't want to forget the short term, because those are all mid and longer range issues. In the short term, last year, the Planning Commission approved the walkability checklist, and that implements a section of the general plan framework that looks to the private side of the property line and asks that new development accommodate and enhance the pedestrian experience and the transit experience directly in front of those properties. And Simon Pastusha is passing out the final version of the walkability checklist, which was reformatted in November of last year. We'd like you each to have a color copy of that. It is something that our staff and our hearing examiners work with now as they do project-by-project review. The next point I'd like to make is that we are following forward through TOD design, such as the Boyle Heights project and the Gold Line extension. Helen Bibas is here and Jordan Turner. They are working on the same kind of issue for the bike element, actually looking at the dimensions of the streets. And then finally, I say this is wistfully, is that ideally we would have the resources to do the citywide mobility element, the old transportation element. And at the moment, the city department does not have the resources to do a citywide reexamination of that. We are bringing forward these other plans and proposals for you to look at. And what our recommendation today will be is that when the downtown street standards come to you in a few weeks, we will bring back our written report to this council motion. But I wanted to let you know that the City of LA has been a real leader in trying to move this forward and actually implementing it.
I truly appreciate the effort that's being put forth. Just a couple of questions. I know that in the going through the community plan process and revising our community plans, these standards and these types of observations and hopefully implementation strategies, will they be able to be incorporated into the community plans as they evolve?
That's right. We're planning, we are working with the community planners, and I think the Hollywood plan is the plan that's done the most detail. Actually looking at the streets in the different community plan areas, measuring them, working with DOT and engineering, and coming up with a reconfiguration of them that address this balance between pedestrian, bicycle, and transit.
Right. And looking at the Central City North Plan and seeing the River Master Plan and what it introduces, the leveraging potential here, because I know we have a couple of planners working on the Riverfront District. We're looking at the whole LEAD program, but we're also establishing the Central City North Plan as it connects to the River Plan, and that node around the confluence of the river in Pasadena River and Arroyo Seco and the LA River as a LEED green neighborhood. Now, my assumptions are that your work is overlapping with theirs, or there's a level of coordination?
Well, as a matter of fact, we met with Claire Bowen this morning to go over some of the early recommendations for the Cornfield specific plan area with just that idea in mind.
Great, great. So we're all on the same page. Yeah. Fantastic. So we will go ahead and refer to planning and transportation departments, the work that's needed to get done. And these are trying economic times, so we'll see what we can do about the funding issue. But that's another meeting and another discussion. But thank you very much. And that'll be the action of this committee. Item number 3, Roberto.
Item 3, Councilman, is a report from the city attorney. It's a draft ordinance that amends the municipal code relating to trash chutes and recycling chutes, and I believe what's before you is the ordinance.
Yeah, in reviewing the ordinance, it seems that it's achieving the goals as set by the instructions of the council, so we'll approve the draft ordinance, seeing no cards.
Correct.
Next item, Roberto.
Next item, Councilman, is a report from the Bureau of Engineering. It's in response to a motion, Garcetti Perry. It relates to the implementation of LEED Silver standard in all newly built city facilities that are above 7,500 square feet or larger.
Fantastic. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Councilman. I'm Deborah Weintraub from the Bureau of Engineering. We have in front of you a report to increase the standard for city projects from LEED certified to LEED Silver. And just to give you a little bit of background, the council voted in 2002 that all city-funded new construction projects would be LEED certified. Under the Bureau of Engineering's responsibility, we're now tracking approximately 51 projects, or I should say exactly 51 projects, that are meeting LEED, and out of those, we have a total of 18 that have gotten their certification, 11 at the certified level, 7 at the silver level, 3 at the silver, 3 at the gold, and 1 at platinum, which means 7 above the silver level. We maintain on a quarterly basis this spreadsheet where we track all the points that our different projects are going after, so I'm going to hand this over here to be handed out. We've been to 2 other council committees prior to coming here, and I just wanted to highlight for you some of the changes and the recommendations that came out of those discussions. One was that any historic project or a project that is deemed eligible for historic designation will be exempted from the requirement. The recommendation for LEED Silver is a recommendation for projects 7,500 square feet or larger, so the same threshold that we're currently using. We've also suggested to council that they consider mandating LEED Silver for not only new construction but also major renovations and tenant improvements. So that, for example, the Public Works building, which we completed a couple years ago, under this recommendation would have had to have been a LEED project. And we've also suggested that we develop with the council a procedure for requesting exemptions from this requirement, because there may be projects, because of funding, really warrant considering being exempted from the requirement. So with that, I'm here to answer any questions.
No, I understand that, as I stated, several committees have reviewed this, and yeah, the Energy and Environment Committee, as well as, and they've taken certain actions, so we could go ahead and approve the draft ordinance and instruct the CEO to prepare a financial analysis before this item goes to council.
Actually, Councilman, you're going to approve the BOE recommendations
Okay.
and instruct CAO to do the financial analysis before the item goes to the council.
Okay, that's the Energy and Environment Committee's recommendation.
Correct.
That's exactly what we'll do then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank
Okay, next time, Roberto.
The next item, Councilman, is a report. It's a draft ordinance from the City Planning Commission. It's affecting a zone change incident to subdivision for a proposed project that involves a demolition of a furniture store and the construction of 2 standalone commercial buildings in CD3.
Okay. So that, I believe we have on a consent?
Yes, Councilman, unless you have speaker's cards.
No, we don't have speaker cards on that, so we put that on the consent calendar.
Yes.
And then item number 6, we can continue in plum till May 5th, 09, and in council May 20th. I should have done this at the beginning. Number 7,
Number 7, Councilman, is an appeal by Diane Edwardson, Cindy Ortiz, and Cheryl Parisi. They're appealing the decision of the East LA APC as relates to a zone change and vesting tract map for a
Okay.
15-lot single-family subdivision and 1 open space lot in CD 13.
well, Roberto, let's move on to that one just for a moment, and let's go to item number 8, because that one we can dispose of. It's a technical change, and I believe the staff just wants to come over and make us aware of that technical change, and then we can approve that item.
Right. Item 8 is a draft ordinance as relates to the boundaries for the Cypress Park and Glasswell Park CDO.
Good afternoon, Craig Weber, planning staff. Just want for the record for the committee to know that staff has submitted an ordinance with technical corrections that more accurately depict the number of zones that will be changed within the recommended boundaries for the Cypress Park, Glassell Park CDO.
Exactly, so this just pertains to the boundaries itself, and that's it,
Correct.
correct?
The boundaries themselves do not change. However, there are 28 unique zones within the boundaries. The
Okay.
ordinance that was originally submitted only listed 25. We then discovered 3 additional unique zones that needed to be listed in the table.
Okay. So we will move with the technical changes you submitted to the clerk?
Yes.
Yes, fantastic. Okay, then we'll act on that item, and we'll move it. So that gets us back to item number 7 as the last item.
Correct, Councilman.
Okay, let's move on that one then.
And that's the appeal relative to the zone change for a 15-lot single-family subdivision in CD 13.
Can we have a break for a report from the staff? And then we'll hear from the appellants. And based on the issues and concerns raised by the appellants, we'll ask the staff to come back. And of course, we'll have public comment. Item number 7.
Latif Sholibor, City Planning. The case before you is an appeal of the approval of
So Shalibo, if I could just direct you to speak in the microphone, we'll hear you a lot better.
Okay. Latif Sholibor, City Planning. The case before you is an appeal of the approval of a vesting tentative tract map for 16 lot subdivision, including one open space lot under the small lot ordinance 176354. The subdivision request is on a 3.0 net acre site, zone R1-1VL, and designated for low residential uses in the Silver Lake Eco Park Elysium Valley Community Plan, with corresponding zones of R9, RS, R1, RU, RD6, and RD5. Also requesting is a zone change from R1 VL to RD6 1VL and a haul route approval. The zone change approval from R1-1VL to RD6-1 is to allow clustering of the development in order to minimize grading on the site and to allow for more preservation of open space and for retention of wildlife corridor within the project site area. The advisory agency approved the proposed project on April 29, 2008 and recommended approval of the zone change request. The advisory agency decision was appealed by the appellant and 2 others to the East Los Angeles Area Planning Commission. The commission at its meeting on 24th of September 2008 granted the appeal in part, sustained the action of the advisory agency, adopted modified conditions of the approval and findings, and adopted the mitigated negative declaration EMV 2005-9337 MND reconsideration as modified. The basis of the appeal is that the mitigated negative declaration is inadequate and does not mitigate all the impact of the project, even with the additional mitigation measures imposed by the East Los Angeles Area Planning Commission, and with all the modified conditions of the advisory agency approval. The Commission concluded that the mitigation measures that have been imposed serve to reduce the impact to a less than significant level. At this point, the appellant felt that those mitigations are not strong enough.
Sorry, can you repeat that last point?
The Commission concluded that the mitigation measure imposed on the project at the Commission hearing is adequate to address all the mitigation, all the impact of the project.
It is adequate.
It is adequate.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. And it went from what to what again? It went from, what was the initial proposal and where are we at today?
The initial proposal?
Right. How
Well,
many?
the initial proposal was for 21 single-family homes, which we allowed the applicant to grade most of the project site area. As you can see, this is a very steep area. As a result of the massive grading proposed by the applicant, the council office advised the applicant to apply for a small lot subdivision with a zone change request to change from R1 to RD1 to RD6 in order to minimize grading on the site. That is why the applicant proposed 16 small lot subdivision with one open space with one lot dedicated for open space in order to preserve most of the hillside area and minimize the grading.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Oliva. I'd like to ask the appellant if you'd like to come on up. Let's hear from the appellant, your case and reasons for your appeal.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Honorable Council Member. My name is Douglas Karstens. I'm an attorney with Chatton Brown and Karstens. We are here in support of the appeal. I represent Cindy Ortiz and also an organization known as the Stewards of the Semi-Tropic Spiritualist Track. I'd like to only take 2 minutes and leave time for the other appellants. We do believe an EIR is required. Certainly there is a fair argument that this may have an adverse impact. It was laid out in the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy letter of February 27, 2006, and also Diane Edwardson's letter of February 22, 2006. Before I read from that letter, I'd like to point out that this analysis, the conditions that have been imposed, defer improperly the mitigation. The tree replacement plan in condition 21 and 24, improper deferral. The traffic and parking plan in condition M22 is improper deferral. Biological assessment for wildlife in condition 27 is improper deferral. The trail connection in condition 34 is improper deferral. All of that information should be analyzed now and available for public review, and then mitigation imposed based on that. The California Environmental Quality Act just does not allow gathering the information later and then trying to come up with mitigation. Now, the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy very eloquently, and I know there's a representative here, but I'd like to incorporate their comments. They very eloquently said that the MNT does not discuss the significance of the oak and walnut woodlands, nor the role in providing connectivity to other woodlands. They also said that this revised CEQA MND should enumerate which tree species are proposed to be removed. It said the MND is deficient for not providing a discussion of wildlife utilizing the site, such as small mammals and birds, raptors and birds of prey. It also said that it does not address the impacts to habitats associated with fuel modification. It said the project and retaining wall may have viewshed implications, adverse impacts that haven't been analyzed. I made my points. I really appreciate the consideration.
Sure. Just one last detail. Did you submit a card?
Your Honor?
Did you submit?
I mean, not Your Honor. I was in court this morning.
Force of habit, right?
Mr. Council Member, I did submit a card.
Okay,
and it's
good.
in the, it's there.
Okay, well, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Please state your name and address, please. We can see it. You're good there.
I'm Diane Edwardson, appellant, 2630 Corralitos Drive, Los Angeles 90039. Thank you for hearing this case today. I submitted a package of photos that has this on the front, and I kind of want to walk you through these because this is important.
Okay.
Alessandro is here. His development is overlaid on the photograph, and the red line is the amount of grading, the additional amount of hillside and trees that his grading plan submitted to and approved by the grading division okayed. This is the crux of the problem. We were not aware of this, that he was still taking out the hillside and having to grade it 2-to-1, or compacted 2-to-1 as the section cuts that follow this picture in the package show. The hillside between where all the trees are, just past his yellow drainage benches, show where all the black walnuts are. That's the primary black walnut woodland that he's taking out. The plateau above it and the trees, we were led to believe we would retain most of that hillside and be getting that in exchange for going along with the 15-lot subdivision down below. That lot 16 would be his open space lot. We thought we would get functional open space. It will be graded, much like the Menlo property, which is on Riverside Drive north of Fletcher, page number 8 in your package. That and 7, where we'll be going from a 2-to-1 compacted slope where nothing grows. And this is a maintained, the Menlo property is landscaped and maintained and has been for 6 years. We have retaining walls that don't have foliage grown up over them after 6 years, and it's a constant source of graffiti. By taking out the big trees, we're losing a substantial source of air cleaning. By living next to the freeways, we live next to the freeway, we made the choice to live there, but we've also got, according to his own tree count, something like 60 trees that are significant or native, but we don't know exactly where they are because they didn't all get marked on the map, and we were not shown what was being removed. We had to discover it ourselves after the close of public comment in December 2007. When you have big trees like the one below, where the woman in the picture is 6 feet tall and the tree is towering over her, it's representative of what we have in the neighborhood, which amount to the 3 acres, according to the USDA Forest Service Urban Forest Effects Model Pollution Estimator. They can remove as much as 70 kilograms of pollutants from the air on that 3-acre site. And living next to the 2 and the 5, and this is not a retouched photo, that is the early morning inversion layer that forms that we see on beautiful clear days.
Can I ask you to conclude?
In conclusion, I ask that you consider the soils and hydrology and the effects of the trees on the loss of the trees on the hillside, and the fact that graded slopes do not perform like natural slopes in the watershed issues for the LA River, which I mentioned in my letter in 2/22/06.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Any other? Would you like to take your picture with you? Your photo? Sure. Anyone else on record as the appellant that would like to speak? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Cindy Ortiz, and I have lived on the Semi-Tropic Spiritualist track for 21 years. This hill is my heart. To acquire, operate, and maintain campgrounds in the County of Los Angeles, State of California, and to hold meetings to be devoted to the maintenance and spreading of the religion of modern spiritualism, its philosophy, and its phenomena. Taken from the Articles of Incorporation of the Semi-Tropic Spiritualist Association, registered on the 20th day of July in the year of 1905. Granted, the original members of the Semi-Tropic Spiritualist Association are long gone, but the integrity and intent of this association has stood for over 103 years. Today you have heard about grading the urban wildlife, significant and native trees. Allow me to envision of what could be. Positioned between 2 schools, Clifford Street and Alessandro, and without greenery on their playgrounds, these students could only benefit greatly. I wish to assure this committee that it's not in my backyard stance that we take, but simply knowing of what could be lost forever. Our position has always been, come and experience the hill and note the wonderful trees, the abundance of wildlife, the tranquility, and to also be inspired by the most treasured jewel, the Paul Landacre Cabin and Grounds. Paul Landacre's works are valued throughout the world, and even though he passed in 1963, he is still considered America's preeminent wood engraver. Such works as Lot Clearing and Sultry Day are incorporated from the Semi-Tropic Spiritualist track, deemed a cultural landmark, monument number 839. Who could even imagine that such masterpieces could be made from such a humble dwelling? I reacquainted myself yesterday with a quote from Paul Landacre. You see artist practice here, along with various other concerns, pruning trees, repairing the roof, watching and feeding wildlife, and so on. Of course, other artists live on the wooded hillsides too, and so do other people, but it must be conceded that to some of us, in this kind of environment, is not only valuable, but absolutely necessary. A degree of seclusion, the life of growing things, awareness that we are part of nature. So I must ask, are we all not stewards to some degree? Don't we have a right and responsibility to protect our open space and secure our history? I can only hope that this committee supports the Edwardson, Ortiz, and Parisi appeal and deny the zone change. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ortiz.
Also, may I submit this?
Yes, give it to the clerk. Thank you, Ms. Ortiz. I believe that covers everyone that's been identified as appellants on record.
There's one more appellant, Councilman.
Okay.
Cheryl Parisi.
Cheryl, are you here?
She's in another hearing.
Oh, she spoke already.
She's not here.
She's not here? Okay. All right, then we'll move to public comment. We'll start with are the owners of the property here or the developers like to speak first, or like to wait for the? Let's have you come on up.
Good afternoon. I'm Henry Nunez, the applicant.
Good afternoon.
And well, the project started about 4 years ago. We actually submitted a formal vested tract map of about 21 or 24 homes. I think it was about 21. And we actually proposed to grade the entire 3-acre site. After that, we held maybe about a dozen different community meetings. We worked very, very closely with CD13's office, and a compromise was brought up from the community and Eric Garcetti's office that included the community plan, and that was to do cluster housing, limit grading, save open space. And so the compromise was made to leave maybe about 1.5 acres of open space and then develop on the lower portion. Now, that saved an incredible amount of grading. The project now has a very, very minimal retaining walls. All of the houses are what we call on grade, where there's no subterranean parking at all. 6 of them are 2 stories, 9 of them are 3 stories. So the grading was always included. They refer to the March 5th letter. That's a condition from your geotechnical department before we had our first public hearing on the matter. So that grading was always there, and any issues about the trailway, the wildlife corridor, are all incorporated into this, what I would consider a very model project, because we're leaving so much open space for any type of wildlife corridor. There's about 54 trees on there. Half of them have been rated by a certified arborist as low quality. There's 3 oak trees at the very top that are not going to be removed or affected in any manner. So we've had near unanimous approval at every stage: the Neighborhood Council, the East LA Planning Commission, and it's just been the 3 applicants. I respect or 3 appellants. I respect their right, but I respectfully request denial of the appeal. I ask for modification on a couple of the conditions. One of the conditions from the planning department is for a variance to require a decorative block wall by neighboring residential. However, we don't have any residential adjacent to the property. It's all surrounded immediately by paper streets or improved streets. And Lot 16, we've agreed to have a designated public access and open space lot. So any block wall would limit any public access. And then in the grading, there was a condition at the last planning commission to limit 10-wheel dump trucks export time of 3 weeks, and I have a little concern. At that night, I really wasn't able to quantify it, and I have a little bit of concern as to whether that's going to allow for sufficient time. I'd like to request those be removed to give me more freedom to use double dump trucks that would just expedite the time, the removal of the export.
Well, hold on to those questions. I'd like the staff to take note of those questions. I want to ask you, what would be a time frame that would be addressing the concerns, should we go in that direction? But I want to make sure the staff is writing these questions down.
Okay.
Mr. Nunez, how many community meetings did you have in this process?
10 to 12, a minimum of 10, maybe a dozen.
And who attended these meetings?
They were open to the entire community. At times we had a minimum of 100 people. We had them at the Alessandro Elementary School District. We had other smaller groups that were all hosted or organized by CD13 office. We worked very, very closely. They took the lead on all the planning, all the community meetings.
Okay. Is anybody else that you want to come to the microphone that would represent your point of view?
I'd like to have Daryl Fisher.
Okay, he did fill out a card, so come on up.
Good morning. Actually, I did submit a card.
Yes, you did.
I'd just like to say a couple things. He stole my thunder. I was going to recite the background and the history of the project over 4 years just to get to this point. And we would really appreciate your action today so we can get on with the project. It's hard to make everybody happy all of the time. And all of the issues raised here have been raised from the very beginning, and additional conditions have been imposed at each step of the way. And we think that it's time to, especially in these economic times, to move the project forward to the City Council, and we request your action in that regard. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'd like to call up Paul Edelman, and then Isa Agassi.
Which time do we get?
Paul Edelman?
Paul Edelman.
2 minutes?
2 minutes. Paul Edelman, Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy, honorable members, whether it's 10 years it took to do this development or 100 community meetings, what it really boils down to at the end is what does the community get out of it? I think if you look at these conditions for open space, for the trail, and for the restoration, that they're absolutely in the favor of the developer. It can be weaseled out of in seconds. So the worst written conditions I've ever seen for these type of measures. What could become of this open space? It could become fenced. It could become lighted. Public access. There's nothing in there that guarantees public access. This trail, they can work with it, maybe consult with the Conservancy and maybe get a trail in. It's about as binding as, there's about as nothing binding to it as, it's not even, it's the weakest tape there is. So we can't let this go forward. I have no problem, the Conservancy has no problem with the project itself, but this trail is so bogus. It's on this city's trail plan. It's on the Rim of the Valley Trail corridor, but that's not binding whatsoever. The open space isn't binding. If that's private land and it's not public land, what's going to become of it? It's going to become a place where people are going to want to exclude people. We think that it should become public open space and that you should have add to the CC&Rs for the funding mechanism to have $15,000 to $20,000 a year to take care of the site. It's a tough site to maintain and it needs that much money. And given the beauty of the site, its connectivity to Elysian Park, and its value to the public, these are the types of things the public needs. There's strong controversy over the adequacy of the mitigation measures in the CEQA. And at the bottom line is the public should get something out of it. The conditions should be written so there's absolutely no way they get a permit for one thing at all until that trail is designed, dedicated, and built. For instance, a certificate of occupancy. Rest our case.
The lot 16 that's been identified as open space and for public use, are you saying that's not enough?
It's not enough in the sense that what is there in the conditions that will prevent them from fencing portions of it?
I'm sorry, say that again?
What is there in the conditions that would prevent them from fencing portions of that lot and slowly over time incrementally reducing public access? There's nothing. Nothing.
Thank you, Mr. Edelman.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Issa, would you like to come on up? This is your name and address.
Issa K. Mexon, 1028 and a half Laguna Avenue, 90026. I don't live near the project, and it's not just the appellants who are opposed. I am opposed. Now, you are in the planning department. I assume you've all gone to the site and you know it well. Now, the planning department came up with 14 guidelines, which the city approved, and the urban design studio has principles for design. I believe this project violates the city's adopted design standards. I won't go through the urban design studio, but just to give some highlights. That creates usable and accessible transit areas, reinforce walkability and well-being, bridge the past and the future to integrate new development with the cultural or architectural past. I won't go through all because you know them. And you look at the project, look at the area, and you will see it violates your standards. Back to the drawing board.
Thank you very much. Ida Talala, I believe. I apologize if I mispronounced your name.
No, you've got it right.
Okay, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, members and Mr. Chairman and ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for this opportunity to say a few words. My name is Ida Talala. The address is 1633 Morton Avenue, and I live in zip code 90026. I am here as a member of District 1, representing District 1 of the Neighborhood Council, Greater Echo Park Elysian Neighborhood Council. I am also on the Planning and Land Use Board, but it is in a state of flux, so I don't know whether I am in or out. But I'm certainly here as a stakeholder and the representative for this district in which this site is located. It is an ideal site for Survey LA. We have such few sites left in Echo Park, and this is a premier site. We need to do more for this site. It is one of the few remaining significant Echo Park tracts that is crucial to maintaining integrity of area landscape, neighborhood history, flora, and fauna, with the additional bonus of being a trail link for both people and wildlife. It is crucial that it be preserved for the generations ahead. It is imperative that we maintain this for improving water quality and quality of life in Echo Park. I certainly am for the appeal. I'm against the proposal, and I beg this committee to rethink its decision. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And David Gurr, and then we'll have Jonathan Strait. David Gurr, are you here? David Gurr, 2647, like to speak? And then Jonathan Strait.
I'm sorry, President Reyes, the acoustics in here are not the best.
That's what I always say. I always say that.
You need more suits back there absorbing the sound. So.
Okay. Yeah,
I'm David Gurr. I live at 2647 Corralitos Drive. I'm on the other side of the Glendale Freeway from the Semi-Tropic Spirituality Development. And my question is this good planning to take away an urban forest for a development that probably isn't going to occur for some time? I raise this issue because on the Glendale Freeway, at that particular area is where the Glendale Freeway merges from 4+ lanes into 2 lanes to go onto Glendale Boulevard. And every morning, this is a parking lot. And it can be a parking lot. I can look from my terrace the other direction, and it can be a parking lot all the way to the Rebay Academy and Forest Lawn Cemetery, and which obviously generates a great deal of pollution. I know under normal times economics will trump pollution, but in this instance, that even the Metropolitan Transit Authority and Caltran have said that even when they improve that exit from the Glendale Freeway, that it's really not going to reduce congestion at all. And again, of course, we're in the frame of reference where for 40 years there's been no significant highway development in the state of California. So there are not many solutions to that pollution other than retaining an urban forest that helps to absorb those. And I'm personally affected because I have serious health problems. I have read somewhere where I know that pollution takes off another 5 months of one's life. And I guess at my age, 5 months seems like a lot of time. The National Association of Realtors obviously recognize the economies in the tank. And they estimate it'll be in the teens before there will be any demand for this housing. I know personally from the block that I live on that homes that have been developed are not being sold.
Mr. Greer, can I ask you to conclude?
Yes.
Your 2 minutes are up.
Done. Thank you.
Okay. Would you like to conclude?
Pardon?
Would you like to conclude?
Again, with the simple question of, is it good planning to take away an urban forest for a development that is very far in the future and highly concentrated?
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Our next speaker is John Strait. Jonathan Strait.
Hi, how are you?
Okay. Good afternoon.
Done with the texting, good. So I'll keep mine real short, just one quick sentence.
You got 2 minutes, though.
2 minutes. That's more than I need, really.
All right.
I just find that this project, when examined closely, just goes right in the face of the mayor's plan for the greenest city in the nation, and to have 1 million trees in LA. It's like we're taking 60 down while we're putting little dinky ones up and stuff. And I find that it's just right in opposition to it, and it's just too dense for this area. That's that.
Thank you, sir. Short and succinct. I'll be closing the public hearing now, because we keep getting cards, and if I don't close it, I don't think we'll ever leave today. Guadalupe Chapa, and then we'll have James, I believe it's Nunya.
Thank you for hearing me. I want to address, my name is Guadalupe Chapa. I live at 2292 Silver Ridge Avenue. I want to address one point that the developer made about the community meetings. There have been about 6 or 7 community meetings, and they have not all been there have been like 2 or 3 large community meetings, a couple of Echo Park Neighborhood Council community meetings, or the planning committee of the Echo Park Neighborhood Council, and there have been a couple of smaller meetings. And he expressed that there was widespread support. That has to be clarified in the boards that approved what he was doing. There was not widespread support from the communities. In the community meeting, there was always widespread opposition to his plan. Even in the Echo Park Neighborhood Council meetings, the people who were not on the board voting, but the people who were attending the meetings were always there to express their opposition to this plan. What I want to say about this development is that I've been working with people for about the past 5 or 10 years in Silver Lake and Echo Park to try and increase our open and green space. We've tried to identify lots that are either from the city or that can be preserved and protected, and we've tried to do it in a way that we can connect the parks. So what I'm worried about is what this development represents in terms of setting a precedent. That a developer could go in, remove mature, black walnut trees the way that it's been presented, not paying any attention to diverse flora, fauna. So I think that for any kind of future development that we might see, we really don't want this to be the precedent, that you can go in there, You can remove existing mature oak trees without concern for all the issues that have been raised in terms of the watershed protection, the protection of the residents, because it does provide a level of protection in terms of air pollution that we're exposed to because of where we live, and we recognize that where we live, we are exposed.
Thank you, Ms. Chapa.
Okay.
So do you want to conclude?
Well, I mean, yes. I think that's the main point that we're trying to make here, is that we think that this does set a very dangerous precedent in terms of what the city will allow. And the previous speaker saying,
Okay.
why do we want to remove mature trees when you have a mayor that's going
Thanks,
around the
Ms.
city
Chapa.
trying to plant more trees?
Got it. Thank you. Thank you very much. James Dunya. And then we'll have Ross Plessett, I believe. Good afternoon, sir.
Afternoon. My name is James Nunya. I live in 1932 Walcott Way, just above this project. And I submitted a packet of pictures that in our community we have this open space that's beautiful. We have developers that go in and leave spaces like this bare and dusty, and all of the trees are torn down. We have developers to go in and leave walls like this, graffiti, filled with graffiti all of the time. I heard Mr. Fisher talking about moving on with the project, that they've been working on it for 4 years. The project is up for sale. The City Council put together a letter, which I submitted as part of my packet, that clearly states that this was one applicant and this applicant only. There's 3 lots there that I know of, but the applicant has 16 lots up for sale. I made this as part of my packet, and I would like or ask you to not let this guy come in, or this developer come in and destroy our community and destroy our neighborhood. In closing, I'd just like to say on Alessandro in the mornings, there's 20 rows of cars trying to get into Glendale Boulevard. If you go to Riverside Drive, there's another 10 rows of cars trying to get out of the community. To put another 100 cars in this little small substandard neighborhood with substandard streets would be a disaster.
So now I have the announcement for the sale of the land. Is there a date on that?
Yes, there is. You have a copy of this, and the date is, this is 1/14/09.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
And if you need this one, you can have this one also. But I
To the clerk,
gave her a
please.
packet.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, sir. Okay, our next speaker is Ross Plessett. And please, sir.
Hi. Some of my points have been touched upon already, but I'm going to go into more detail on them. I live at 2240.5 Lakeshore. I'm on the same hill as the property, but I'm about half a mile north of it. I wanted to talk about the legacy of failed developments in our neighborhood. One of these sites is this property which we're discussing, 2400 Alessandro. In the early 80s, a zone change was granted for a 30-unit apartment building. However, the developer abandoned the plans after expressing concerns over soils and engineering reports. The zone change subsequently expired. There is a long history of failed developments on the Corralitos-Redcar corridor, which is on the opposite side of the Glendale Freeway as this property that we're discussing today. On multiple occasions, speculators got approvals for zone changes, but each time the zone change expired and a grading was a primary concern. Another failed development is the Menlo property on Riverside Drive north of Fletcher. In the 1980s, a developer planned to build 80 apartment units on this site. However, he ran out of funds and abandoned the project, but the community was left with unfinished retaining walls that get tagged with graffiti, and there are homeless people and dumping. About 6 years ago, the grading and landscaping on this site was completed. The slope is watered and maintained regularly, yet soil compaction allows for little to grow. Thus, these retaining walls, which were supposed to be covered with foliage, remain largely exposed for graffiti vandals. My last example is the 18-acre Elysian Park parcel on Riverside Drive. Prior to its acquisition by the city, Foodcraft Coffee wanted to put warehouses there.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Rosie, I believe it's Benton Court? Okay, I'm sorry. I'm trying my best to read the letters.
Don't worry.
Okay. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Rosie Betanzos, and I was born and raised in Echo Park. My greatest concern is bringing my children. I have two of them, and seeing that Echo Park more and more is losing the hillside. It is becoming not Echo Park. Echo Park is known for the hills. That's one of the crucial things. And noticing this development, it's going to lose a huge part of that hill. And it's just for 15 homes. It's a lot of it. But my concern is it's too much overdevelopment in Echo Park. The fact is, like the gentleman before me, I deal with crime. I'm in positive energy crime prevention. I do work with Echo Park and Silver Lake for the last several years. And as a young kid, that's one of the things we used to do. We used to paint out graffiti. But when there is development that is left behind, it gets to the point that, what do you tell your kids? There is a shooting right now between Echo Park and Crazies. Right now they're tagging between each other. The more we leave, exposed, segments like that, the more crime we're inviting. Let's put a stop to this ridiculous overdevelopment, especially the ones that are left behind that they don't finish it. They just start it and just leave behind the mess. Let's start, respecting Echo Park for what it is. It's a hillside. We respect it, we enjoy it, we love our trees. I remember when I was a kid, it was beautiful. In the 80s, I remember it was terrible. And I remember Echo Park Improvement Association as a kid. That's the reason it started, because crime started, coming in, a gang member. But the most beautiful part is that we started planting trees. 60 trees are going to be removed. 60. What are we telling our kids? It's okay to destroy communities? It's okay to say, well, here comes a new development? My point is this, please, all of you, think about this. Do you want to keep your community the way it is in the beautiful, or do you want to destroy it? When we come to a community, we enhance it, not destroy it. And this is exactly what's happening here. So help me out with this, because it is beyond ridiculous with the graffiti. Let's put a stop to that.
Thank you, Ms. Benson.
Thank you. Have
Thank
a
you
great
very
day.
much. Thank you. Okay, I believe that covers all of the public hearing cards that were submitted. We do have a representative from the district office, and I'd like to hear from Noel Hume.
Good afternoon, council members. Thank you for your time. I do want to thank the planning staff for their work on this project. It has been quite some time that we've all been trudging through this project together. I do want to note that you have, I think, in front of you a letter which the council member submitted about a year ago during the appellate procedures that happened at the East LA Planning Commission. The council office has not changed their position since that time. Our letter lists several conditions of approval which planning staff has incorporated into their staff recommendation today. I won't go through the entire list, but I do want to point out a couple of things that we have done along the way. One is that the applicant will be maintaining the 35-foot height limit on the property. They have agreed to cover retaining walls with drought-resistant foliage, because graffiti is a continual concern in our community. And we have been able to work very closely with them to make sure that Lot 16, which is over an acre, will be maintained as public open space. I do understand that there are a couple of issues which still need to be worked out. Specifically, condition number 9 in our letter states that we would like the vesting of this tentative tract map apply only to this application and none other. In talking to the planning staff and the city attorney's office, I believe there's a preferred method to impose that type of condition. Jerry Bird, you had mentioned earlier, perhaps a Q condition that stipulates the zone change would require that the application be in substantial conformance with the exhibit. I'm going to defer to staff to figure out the exact verbiage that's appropriate. So I think those are the technical points I wanted to point out. I do want to remind you this is something that our office has been working closely on for quite a bit of time. My predecessor, Allison Becker, was a part of this, as well as Mitch O'Farrell, our district director. Neither of them could be here today, so I'm here on behalf of the office. I ask that you support the planning staff recommendation today. Thank you.
Monsieur, before you leave, I do have a couple of questions. I will ask my colleague if he has any. But in your conditions, I don't see any verbiage that requires that the number of trees that are being removed will be replaced. Is there a reason for that? Is it your goal as an office to not lose the number of trees you have there and to have them replaced? Or how is that being considered?
Well, I think that it's difficult to kind of grasp the situation on the ground. And, I don't know all the details of the situation. I just want to be honest. So I think that in the process moving forward, we wanted to make sure that all the open space that was maintained.
Well, let me do this.
Okay.
Let me ask the staff. And here they speak to a landscaping plan. Who in the planning department will be the steward in making sure that the conditions are meeting the expectations of what was negotiated? Who on the staff can speak to that?
Latif Shulibos, City Planning. Under condition number 17 of the Area Planning East Los Angeles Area Planning Commission, it was required that the applicant, I can give you the verbiage. 17.
Well, in Councilmember Garcetti's letter, point number 3, he states that a detailed landscaping plan specific to parcel 16 is presented to planning for approval in advance of any grading. Is that verbiage included in your conditions, or it will be included?
Which condition are you reading?
This is from the Councilman Garcetti's letter.
Oh.
Are you familiar with the conditions he has proposed?
Which number is this?
If I may, Chairman, fellow committee member. My name is Michael Young with the Planning Department. In regards to the landscape condition, also alluded by the council representative, council from Chatton Brown. In that regards, condition 21 alludes to mitigation measures as well as condition number 24. On page 8 of the determination itself, there were a number of conditions, MM5, MM6, MM7, alluded to the fact that prior to the issuance of any grading permit or building permit, a plot plan prepared by a reputable tree expert, including the location size of the trees, address the landscape concerns in that regards.
So the sequence of events before a grading plan is accepted.
Is issued, yes.
Is issued. You will have the landscaping plan in place.
We would need to review that landscaping plan.
Okay, so who does the enforcement of that? Who enforces the fact that these trees are planted? And is that building and safety? Is that your shop?
Prior to clearing of the conditions, we ensure that looking at the plans itself, and that the applicant comply with those conditions. If they do not comply with the conditions, we usually, hear from the neighborhood, and either we or Building and Safety, generally Building and Safety, does go out and take a look at those type of conditions. And I've been privy to some of those correspondence.
And what are our legal protections? This was rather startling that it's already, according to this notice, it's being put up for sale. Do we legally have a role in that? If the commitment is being made by the current applicant and the property is sold, the enforcement measure of whatever conditions we impose will go with the land, correct?
That's correct. The conditions run with the land. The zone change as well as the track runs with the land, not with ownership.
And all the mitigation measures that have been articulated and detailed in this letter will also be included, correct?
That's correct.
Have you had a chance to look at Councilman Garcetti's letter? It was dated January 29th, 2008.
Well, to my understanding, depending on how the applicant is trying to sell the property at this point, if the advertisement says that this project has been approved for vesting tentative tract, then all the conditions we have in the tract, we have to run with the land. However, if he's selling prior to the approval, he's probably selling based on what he has on the ground right now.
Okay. Now, okay, go ahead.
And with the tree condition, usually prior to any grading being done on the site, when the applicant go to Building and Safety and request for grading permit, they are going to send them to us for a sign-off, and this is where we will clear the condition for the tree report to make sure that the applicants has already did the landscape plan condition and showing all the trees that will be removed and all the replacement trees. All this will be shown on the landscape plan before we approve it.
The conditions by the council member on this letter dated January 29, 2008, have you been able to fold in this language into your mitigation?
No, I'm just seeing this. Yes, we did. Yeah.
All 10?
Right. If you look, I think I have the council of, okay, right here. In the vesting tentative tract that was approved by the East LA Planning Commission, all the council conditions have been incorporated into the condition of approval, and it reflected, and some of them were modified during the hearing, and I think some of them are deleted, but most of the council's recommendation have been incorporated into this condition of approval.
So that's still too uncertain for me. If I was the council member of the district, I would want to make sure that all of my conditions are incorporated, and what you just told me doesn't give me that impression. Have all the conditions been included? Council, would you mind, can we continue this 1 week? This requires more detail and more understanding. I want to make sure that Councilman Garcetti's priorities are addressed, and I'm going to hold this for 1 week if I can. I would like to ask the applicant if we can do that.
Well, I believe the council.
The 1 week will be fine.
You're fine?
Yeah. I believe they've already seen the conditions that we have in the condition of approval, and I think it's okay with them.
Okay, again, if I'm the council member, I want to make sure all the conditions are within the mitigation language of your report. And are you telling me that the council member's letters and his conditions have been incorporated into the mitigation?
Yes, they have.
They have, okay. Councilmember, do you have any questions?
So the 10 conditions as outlined by Councilmember Garcetti, they are incorporated into the report, and those will be conditions that will be enforced?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, I know this is a delicate balance. Believe me, these are tough cases when you are in distressed areas because of their densities and the age of the infrastructure. But we also have to balance that out with property rights and the need for housing in the best way that our staff, together with the community, can essentially establish. And after 4 years of this, if this is what we can do, we went from 21 to 16 parcels to 15 units with one parcel dedicated to open space. And looking at the case, they tried their best to maintain the wildlife corridors in the periphery. I'm going to double check on this language between now and council to make sure that the councilman's office and your office, Mr. Shalibo, as well as the language that comes before the council is consistent with the type of certainties and securities that we want in place before the council votes on this matter. So I want to double check that. If we can come back into my office, I'd like to have the council office representative there and go through that language to make sure it reflects the desired goals of all the parties. And Councilman, do you have anything else to add?
Yes, it sounds to me like there's been a compromise along some point, and what did concern me was the trees. However, my staff pointed out to me as I'm reading this that a minimum of 2 oak trees shall be planted for each one that is removed, and so there is some effort in here to replace the trees that will be removed, and so I feel comfortable denying the appeal and moving forward. It sounds like this has been a long time in the works, and there's been some communication with the community with the conditions that the local council member has set forth. It seems like this is a good compromise, and I would move that we deny the appeal and move it to council and get those questions answered for you, the chair of this committee, before we vote upon it in council.
Okay, that will be the action of this committee. Just push the button.
Jerry Bridge, City Attorney's Office. Just a clarification, I don't believe I heard staff make this recommendation as requested by CD 13, but instead of condition number 9 as requested by Councilman Garcetti, we would recommend that you add a Q condition that says something like the use and development of the subject property shall be in substantial conformance with the vesting tentative map labeled Exhibit A. Planning staff, would it be a particular exhibit that you could refer?
If I may. Again, Michael Young for the record itself, Planning Department. In regards to the staff report on Q2, page Q2, yes, of the zone change, item number 8 is use. And the words that is now present is limit the proposed development to a maximum of a 15-lot small lot subdivision plus 1 open space lot for a total of 16 lots. My recommendation for the council's consideration is add the words as shown in, sorry, I couldn't read his writing, as shown in vesting tentative track 62900 SL-2A.
Okay.
So it pertains to the track itself. So we're tying the zone change into the track.
Okay. So
Right, and again, Jerry Birch for the record, just to add a clarification to your action, it would be a denial of the appeal as to the vesting tentative track map, but a recommendation on the zone change to RD6, because the only thing before you that was appealed was actually the track map.
Okay. So that will be the action of this committee?
Yes. We also have some recommendation for your consideration before you make your motion. One had to do with a condition in consideration of that wildlife access, and that was Modjeska Avenue to remain unimproved to preserve wildlife access. We'll put that in the zone change as well as into the tentative track. Another condition into the tentative tract that wasn't there originally was the indemnification condition, and we highly recommend that that be included into the tract once it goes to council for approval.
Okay. Okay, so we'll include, anything else, Mr. Saliba?
Also, in addition to those two conditions, staff would like you to incorporate the following conditions in your motion. Under condition 18G, the first paragraph, we would like to add the following to state: a maintenance association shall be formed composed of all property owners to maintain the open space lot and all the common areas. That is just a sentence to add. And also under the same condition 18H, we're adding a new condition that Modesta Street shall remain unimproved to preserve wildlife access.
And this is in your report?
Yeah.
Okay. So, given what our city attorney has recommended for the language of this committee and adding on what has already been recommended by the planning staff, that will be the action of this committee. But I do want to say the staff, along with the council office and my office, before it comes to council, to review the language should we need any other changes or reinforce the goals of the stakeholders that were present in this case.
Okay, the conditions, from my understanding and hearing the planning department, need to be further modified to add certain conditions. So you're going to deny the appeal with the conditions that were requested by the council staff and as modified by the planning department at the hearing, and approve the zone change as a separate action.
I look to my city attorney. She says yes. I agree with you. Okay. So that will be the action of this committee. Thank you very much. Any other items, Roberto?
Oh, did we take item 9? Did we declare that one? There's no report.
Report.
Okay.
There's no report on number 9.
Right, go ahead.
So anybody here for public comment? Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned.
Man, you have a lot of meetings coming up in your office.